Have you ever met someone and felt that something was off before they even said anything important? Maybe their smile looked warm, their words were polite, and nothing was obviously wrong. Yet something inside you told you to pay attention. Most people think understanding someone requires long conversations, deep questions, or months of knowing them. But human beings often reveal themselves much earlier than that, not through some magical ability to read minds. Through patterns, where they look, how they react when attention leaves them, how they treat people who cannot benefit them, what happens when they hear the word no, and who they become when they don't get what they want. Once you understand these patterns, people become much harder to misunderstand. Here are 7 psychological truths that can reveal someone before they ever tell you who they really are. The first truth is this: watch what happens when they are not the center of attention. Almost anyone can appear confident when people are listening to them. The interesting moment comes when somebody else enters the room and suddenly receives the attention instead. Some people remain relaxed. They listen. They ask questions. They allow another person to shine without feeling that something has been taken away from them. Others change almost immediately. They interrupt more often. They become louder. They exaggerate stories. They suddenly have something more impressive to say. Or they subtly redirect the conversation until everyone is looking at them again. This doesn't automatically mean someone is narcissistic or a bad person, but it can reveal something important. Their sense of worth may depend heavily on being noticed. A secure person doesn't need every room to prove that they matter. Sometimes one of the clearest signs of confidence is the ability to disappear from the spotlight without feeling threatened by someone else receiving it. The second truth is, notice how they treat people they don't need. Someone may be incredibly charming toward their boss. They may be respectful toward someone wealthy, attractive, influential, or useful to them. But that doesn't necessarily reveal character. Pay attention to the waiter, the cleaner, the receptionist, the junior employee, the elderly stranger, the person who has absolutely nothing to offer them. People naturally manage their behavior more carefully when there is something to gain. Character becomes easier to see when there is nothing to gain at all. A person who is respectful only toward people above them may not really value respect. They may value status. Watch how they behave when nobody important is watching. Sometimes a 10-second interaction tells you more about somebody than an hour-long conversation. The third psychological truth is one of the most useful. Watch their reaction to a small boundary. You don't need to create an argument. You don't need to challenge them. Just say something simple. I can't today. I'd rather not talk about that. No, thank you. And then watch. Healthy people may feel disappointed. They may even ask once whether you are sure. But ultimately, they recognize that your decision belongs to you. Controlling people often experience your boundary differently. They may question your reasons. They may make you feel guilty. They may become cold. They may joke about your decision to make it seem unreasonable. Or they may simply continue pushing as though your first answer did not count. That reaction can reveal something deeper than the boundary itself. Boundaries don't suddenly create someone's personality. They expose how that person responds when they cannot automatically access your time, attention, emotions, or energy. Pay close attention to anyone who treats your no as the beginning of a negotiation. The fourth truth is, listen carefully to how they talk about people who are not in the room. This one can be easy to miss because gossip sometimes feels like closeness. Someone shares something private about another person, and subconsciously you may think, they must really trust me. But ask yourself a harder question. If they regularly expose other people's weaknesses, secrets, mistakes, relationships, and private lives to you, what makes you believe they will protect yours when you leave the room? You learn a lot about someone's relationship with trust by watching what they do with information that belongs to other people. They don't have to like everyone. They don't have to agree with everyone. And sometimes people genuinely need to talk through a difficult situation. But when someone constantly needs to reduce other people in conversation, humiliate them, expose them, or make themselves look superior by comparison, pay attention. Because one day, you may simply become the person who isn't in the room. And if you're starting to recognize patterns here that you may have overlooked before, subscribe to Beyond the Mind. Here we explore the psychology behind human behavior, relationships, spirituality, self-awareness, and the hidden parts of ourselves we rarely stop to examine. And I want to know something from you. Which of these signs have you noticed most often in real life? Tell me in the comments, because your experience may help someone else recognize a pattern they've been struggling to understand. Now, the fifth truth may reveal emotional maturity faster than almost anything else. Watch what happens when they are wrong. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody misunderstands things. Everybody says something they later regret. The mistake itself is often less revealing than what happens afterward. Can they say, I was wrong. I misunderstood. I shouldn't have done that? Can they change their opinion when they receive better information? Can they apologize without secretly turning the apology into an explanation for why you caused their behavior? Or does something else happen? Do they immediately become defensive? Attack your tone? Change the subject? Bring up something you did 6 months ago? Rewrite what happened? Explain why technically they weren't wrong? A person's relationship with being wrong tells you a lot about their relationship with truth. Emotionally secure people can survive the temporary discomfort of admitting a mistake. They understand that being wrong about something does not mean they are worthless. But a fragile ego may experience being wrong as a threat to identity. So instead of changing the belief, it tries to change the story. And if you repeatedly leave disagreements wondering whether something obvious somehow never happened at all, don't ignore that confusion. The sixth truth is, notice whether their words and their behavior actually match. Someone may say, I'm happy for you. But after hearing your good news, they suddenly become distant. Someone may say, take your time, but then pressure you repeatedly. Someone may tell you, I respect you, yet constantly make jokes at your expense. Someone may say, you can trust me, while repeatedly breaking small promises. One contradiction means very little. People are complicated. We all say things imperfectly. We all have moods. But repeated inconsistency deserves attention. Because human beings communicate through much more than sentences. Tone, timing, body language, follow-through, what they do when nobody reminds them, what happens after the promise has been made. When someone's words and behavior repeatedly tell you two different stories, stop trying to decide which sentence sounded nicer. Look at the pattern. Consistency is usually more informative than intensity. Someone can make enormous promises in 5 minutes. Character is what happens during the next 5 months. And the seventh psychological truth may be the most revealing of all. Watch who they become when they don't get what they want. Anyone can be pleasant while life is cooperating with them. When the restaurant is perfect. When everyone agrees. When people respond immediately. When their plans work. When nobody challenges them. But frustration removes some of the social polish. A delayed order. A rejected request. A disagreement. A lost opportunity. Someone saying no. A plan suddenly changing. Those moments can show you how a person manages powerlessness. Do they become cruel? Do they punish the people around them? Do they blame whoever happens to be closest? Do they insult people who have less power? Do they withdraw affection until somebody gives in? Or can they simply be frustrated without making their frustration everyone else's responsibility? That difference matters. You don't truly know someone's self-control when life keeps saying yes to them. Sometimes you begin to understand them when life finally says no. But there is something very important to remember about all 7 of these truths. Do not use them to diagnose someone based on one moment. Everyone has bad days. Everyone gets insecure. Everyone becomes defensive sometimes. Everyone has moments of jealousy, frustration, fear, impatience, or exhaustion. Psychology becomes dangerous when observation turns into constant suspicion. So instead of obsessing over individual moments, look for repetition. One strange interaction is an event. A repeated behavior is a pattern. And patterns are where people quietly tell you who they are. You also don't need to confront every pattern you notice. That is another mistake people make when they first become more psychologically aware. They think every realization requires a conversation. It doesn't. Sometimes awareness is enough. You can stop explaining yourself so much. You can slow down before trusting somebody. You can give relationships more time before becoming deeply invested. You can notice how someone behaves after they get comfortable with you. You can watch what happens when you disagree. You can allow actions to answer questions that words keep making confusing. And sometimes the person you begin understanding more clearly is yourself. Maybe you realize that you become defensive when you are wrong. Maybe you notice that rejection changes how you behave. Maybe you discover that you talk about people in ways you wouldn't want them talking about you. That isn't a reason to shame yourself. Self-awareness becomes useful when it gives you something you can change. The purpose of understanding human behavior isn't to become suspicious of everyone. It isn't to walk into every room searching for manipulation. And it isn't to believe you can understand an entire human being from 7 signs. The goal is simpler: to stop ignoring patterns that keep repeating, to become curious before becoming attached, to listen to behavior as carefully as you listen to words, and to trust consistency more than performance. Because people are always communicating, sometimes through what they say, sometimes through what they avoid saying, and sometimes through what changes the moment they realize they aren't getting what they want. If this video helped you see someone, or even yourself, a little differently, give it a like. It helps Beyond the Mind reach more people who are trying to understand themselves and the people around them. And if you want more videos about human behavior, psychology, self-awareness, spirituality, and the deeper patterns shaping our lives, subscribe to Beyond the Mind. Because sometimes understanding another person begins with noticing what everyone else walks past. And sometimes understanding yourself begins the exact same way.